So destiny is a very complex issue because, as we read just now about the will, the problem is that we as human beings have not one will but many wills. Though we all think it is one will because different moments we are willing different things. And the more complex we grow, the more there are even distinct personalities in us that seek their own fulfillment. The mother speaks about it that as evolution proceeds and there is a greater and greater complexity, so each of these personalities seeks a different fulfillment. There is a long letter of Satprem to mother saying that I have at least three kinds of personalities within me which are seeking their own fulfillment. Became conscious of it, and it's so true. In Indian thought, it's called as Sanchit Karma and Prarabdha Karma. So Sanchit Karma is all that we have accumulated. Of course, it should not be taken crudely as right or wrong, good or bad, but all that we have accumulated, the energies we have set into motion. But Prarabdha is only that much amount which we can handle in this life. It's not easy to handle all these complex threads of destiny that we have unleashed. And of course, the Kriyaman, the one which we are doing in this life, which will have a repercussion later. The interesting part is that when evolution enters the fast forward phase, so there is a line nowadays, it's become a catchphrase, evolution fast forward. So very often, but what it means is that many destinies which were asleep, which may have taken many lives to resolve themselves, can suddenly erupt and emerge. Because all these different personalities have to be reconciled. And it can completely disorient. That's why the touch of the supramental truth, the mother's blessings, as the mother has said, don't ask for my blessings because they are very dangerous. They will take you through the shortest road towards the goal. So it means that many things which are lying asleep, normally in one life one works out one particular personality. But when it enters fast track, then many things come up and they have to be worked out. And many times our own will, we have these contradictory elements because of which life appears so confused on the surface. So the secret lies in aligning all these wills towards the one will. And that's why the mother says, instead of trying to change circumstances and situation, try to align your wills, all your wills towards the divine. Now once they get aligned and all these personalities can get aligned towards the one, then things become easy and the flow becomes smooth. But otherwise it's a very complex issue. So that's why Ashwapati says that we give the name of doom to our own choice, and the blindness of our will is fate. There is a lovely prayer of Kabir where he says, in my foolishness I ask you many things, but I pray to you one last time, this prayer you don't forget. Other prayers you may forget, but this prayer you please don't forget. That whenever I ask for foolish and stupid things, don't grant them if they are not good for me. I love this prayer when I read it, that this is so wonderful. And mother, I'll ask, because we are in ignorance, so we will ask things. But always we should give an overriding thing that, look, if you really think it's not good for me, don't grant it. But there again the problem comes that we say, if it is not good for me, don't grant me, but it's a very half-hearted, faint whisper. So the mother says, better you say what you want and be done with it. Either ways I will carry you. I will taste you, make you taste the sweet and show you that it was Karela hidden inside. You will realize it's poison. Or if you are asking for poison, I'll make you taste but give you the remedy and save you from it. So sometimes it works like that. Destiny is a very complex issue and works at many levels. For instance, he says there is a destiny of the body. Scientists often talk about heredity, and they wonder that why even a good person who is, doing yoga, is very devoted, dedicated, has to suffer from osteoporosis, from heart attack, cancer, etc., etc. Well, because the body may have a very weak heredity. Now, the destiny of the body from birth is not good. It's a very poor thing. That's why nowadays they talk about heredity as a very strong factor. It's one element, but it can be cancelled by something else, which can completely change it. So there is an interlacing of many levels at play. This will have its own say. A good man may remain good inside and feel the joy of God, and yet his body may suffer from diseases and eventually go another way. Somebody with a strong vitality, who is not very good, does all kinds of excesses, yet lives long. Because the destiny of the body becomes a combination of a strong constitution and a strong vital force. There are people like that who live long, and there is nothing special or exceptional. So many times we see, oh, look, so and so person lived long. It doesn't really mean anything much. Vivekananda lived for 39 years, and in that much time he stormed the world. So, but his body could not take it. It was frail. He had diabetes, hypertension, tuberculosis, name it, and the body couldn't take it. And on top of it, he started praying to Divine Mother, Kali, oh Mother of misery, oh Mother the dark, Mother the terrible, come smite me. Started praying towards the last 2 years of his life, and his body suffered. So, but because his aim was moksha, not liberation, not transformation. So it's not so simple as that, that a good man was, somebody lived very long because he was a good man. If we start applying these criteria, then things don't fit in. A good man may live very long, a wicked man may live very long. So when we look at destiny in this term, there was a conference or seminar once, and the subject was why bad things happen to good people. Now there was a problem with that seminar. We were presuming that there is something called as bad thing and something called as good thing. It's a purely ignorant vision. There is always the eternal good. That's why, which is leading us through what we think is seemingly bad and think as seemingly good. But there is the eternal good which is working itself through the crab-like motion of our will. That's what ultimately is happening, that God has his last say. But he has his last say through a very, very complicated process, and we introduce the complexity in it. So we have a role to play. If our will can get aligned, then the journey will be short, swift, sunlit. Or if we are not aligned, still we will arrive at the goal, but it will be difficult, complicated, riddled with difficulties. But even there is a rider. So the mother says, those who choose this kind of a tortuous path, eventually the saving grace is that their being grows more complex, and they can manifest a lot more of the totality of truth. So it works both ways. Someone asked the mother that, in this world as we are living today, Sri Aurobindo says that there are happy are they who tread the sunlit path. So he says that they must be really exceptional ones who can tread the sunlit path. I wish I could. So mother's reply is very illuminating. She says, in this world full of misery, this state can only be bestowed by an act of grace. No human tapasya can do it. So it's only by special grace that one can tread the sunlit path, where also there are difficulties, but one goes through them smilingly. That's the only difference. So he said, and Narad answered not the king. They are on the same page, basically. They know that, eventually eternal good will win. So there is nothing more to say. But now the queen, alarmed, lifted her voice. After all, she is the mother. So she suddenly feels, my husband has said something, she is very alert to what the husband is saying. And she has already derived meanings. So she knows that something is there, he is hiding. So she is alarmed. And she says, O seer, thy bright arrival has been timed to this high moment of a happy life. See, this is how we tend to interpret things and very often misinterpret them. Oh, the seer has come just when Savitri has come. That means her life is going to be wonderful. So very often we want it like that also. We call people, we call pandits, and somebody once sent photograph of a girl whom one wanted to get married. Actually, one did not want to get married. This person did not want to get married. And the parents saw a girl. And the mother said, you must marry this girl. So this man says, but I want to, not marry. He said, no, you must marry this girl. On top of it, she said, you must treat her like a princess. So she blessed. And his life was so full of misery and unhappiness. So I still remember one of the first things that he had asked me was, Mother had blessed this. Why did I have to go through this misery? I said, precisely because she blessed it. But I didn't want to get married. So I said, who knows? This, what our outer being says and what the inner being needs, either to exhaust or as a kind of karma. So then I asked, did you keep her like a princess? He says, I try my best, but it's so difficult. I say, see, mother has given such a difficult task to you, so challenging. So if you do it, the doors of destiny will open. Because mother has given this task. And she knew it very well. Says, she behaves like a princess. I said, of course, because she wants you to treat her like a princess. So you see, Queen also thinks, now Narada has come, this is blessed occasion. So she is going to have a wonderful life. So she tells him, then let the speech benign of griefless fears confirm this blithe conjunction of two stars and sanction joy with thy celestial voice. So again, like people would send to mother, Mother, please bless this marriage. And mother says in a private communication that people, they just keep sending all these things and they want me to bless. It was not an activity which she was very happy about doing, but she gave a lot of concessions to our humanness. So that's how many things started, and she accepted the human frailty and weakness and all the things and took us to everything towards the divine. That is a grace, benevolent grace. So Savitri's mother, the queen, says, you have come, very auspicious, please bless this, sanction it. Here, drag not in the peril of our thoughts. Let not our words create the doom they fear. So she is at once speaking to Narada as well as to her husband, because she has felt that his speech is guarded. She has read things like, perhaps, there is a doom and we cannot change it, or we can perhaps change it. Narada, don't say unless you can change it. So she has picked up those subtle suggestions that there is something this man knows who is not telling me. So she tells Narada, what, I know, basically she is not saying very directly, but she is trying to imply, this perilous thoughts, fear, they will drag in adverse things. So this is how we use knowledge, or, use it so wrongly. Because mother has said, when you fear, you attract what you fear. So queen has read it. So she says that don't speak of these things, that, bad things may happen, peril. What is all this high wisdom? You simply bless this whole thing. So that's all she wants. Drag not. Here is no cause for dread, no chance for grief, to raise her ominous head and stare at love. It's something so beautiful. My daughter, she has never harmed anyone, anything. And I have always prayed. We are a very pious family, very honest. All the income tax returns, even as a king, I have filed. My statements are put on the internet. What is my property and estate? I indulge in charity. So there is no chance of any grief. God is bound to be kind to me, to us and to her. So Narad, don't think about all those things. Forget about these fears. And then she says so beautifully, just as, parents say. Now here is the parent of the girl. If the parent of the boy was there, they would say similar thing, but in another way. So he says, happy is Satyavan, mid earthly men, whom Savitri has chosen for her mate. She doesn't know who he is, how good he is. But this man is very fortunate. Why? Because Savitri has chosen him. Of course, he is speaking a truth, but she doesn't know on what level this truth applies. And fortunate the forest hermitage, where leaving her palace and riches and a throne, my Savitri will dwell and bring in heaven. Now, here the symbol applies at both the levels. That what is the greatest fortune of life? If we take it that Satyavan is the soul and Savitri is the Divine Mother's grace, so it doesn't matter, even if it is a hut, she has chosen. And when she has chosen, that is the happiest thing to happen. So even though she is going to a forest hermitage, in our Indian thought, there is a very interesting saying that the girl carries her destiny to the husband's home. So she carries the destiny. She is the bringer of destiny. So even if this fellow was meant to be a pauper, she will go and riches will come. Even if he throws away everything, still fortune will come. Goodness will come because she carries the destiny. So here it is beautifully that even if she goes, doesn't matter if it is a forest hermitage. So those are the days when people believed in such beautiful things. Now, we see what bank balance and passport and NRI status. But this conviction that destiny will find its way, and my daughter has her own destiny. She is born amongst riches. She is destined to be rich. So when she goes there, she will carve her own fate. Now you see, there is a truth that the queen is revealing, but through the veil of ignorance. She doesn't know. She is only thinking in terms of outer life. Then let thy blessing put the immortal seal on these bright lives, unstained felicity, pushing the ominous shadow from their days. So we believe that, if a sage or a good person blesses, then whatever shadow is there will go away. It's not as simple as that, but we believe it. So she says, Narada, you come and give your blessings. With your blessings, I am sure everything will be fine. And then because she has heard something about the doom, then the other part of the queen comes out. She is literally beseeching, praying. Too heavy falls a shadow on man's heart. It dares not be too happy upon earth. So the shadow is so strong on human heart that it fears happiness. It is believed that if you are too happy, sadness is round the corner. And there are superstitions about it. So in my village as a child, there was a superstition, 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy. So if you see 1 maina, it brings sorrow. If you see 2, it brings joy. So if we saw 1 maina per chance, so we started looking for the second one. That must see the second one because it's because it is inbuilt into the system that too much happiness is not possible. Life cannot be, everything cannot be beautiful. So she says that too heavy falls a shadow on man's heart, so much that it dares not be too happy upon earth. It dreads the blow, dodging too vivid joys, a lash unseen in fate's extended hand, the danger lurking in fortune's proud extremes, an irony in life's indulgent smile, and trembles at the laughter of the gods. Life's indulgent smile. When she is smiling and giving away, lavishing things on us. But at a human level, she says we must be careful. We don't know. Fate is luring us. So we draw near and near, and then we fall by our own speed. This is how it does. It dangles a carrot. So first we don't know from a distance what this carrot is. Very often, when people go into making money, this is what happens. Like the Midas touch. One starts with little and little more. Then they don't realize that there is already much more, but there is the greed which has come in. And after a while, it's no more money for need, just making money for the sake of money. There is a great joy that I have so much wealth. So it begins to possess. So one begins to run. And the carrot begins to always go a little further. Oh, just a little. One more leap. I will be now in the Forbes list. So one goes in the Forbes list. 25. First 10 में आने से अच्छा रहेगा. I can make it. And he doesn't know that he is sacrificing many things in the process. And a day comes when he trips by that speed. And there is because the heart has been neglected, so there is a heart attack. Because stomach has been neglected, health is neglected. So all kinds of things come up. Because family is neglected, they are also not happy. They are only wanting the money. Because inner being has been neglected. So there is a poverty. So one trips by its own speed. So she is reminding Narada that there is a lash unseen in fate's extended hand, an irony in life's indulgent smile, and trembles at the laughter of the gods. It's very difficult to bear that. It's almost like saying that life is smiling, okay, enjoy. You don't know what I'm going to do next. So that's the irony in life's indulgent smile. Giving a lot of chocolates and saying, wait, I'll give you till finally you have sugar in your bloodstream. Now, this is strange, this kind of fate. So, Queen is reminding Narada, or if crouches unseen, a panther doom, if wings of evil brood above that house, then also speak, that we may turn aside. So he says, maybe after all, I think everything will be fine. But maybe you tell us if there is doom going to come, tell us that also. So we still have time. Marriage has not taken place. Those were days when marriage is the end. But nowadays it's like, okay, even if marriage has taken place, so what? You can always separate. So now he's saying, she's telling him, speak up. Even if there is doom, maybe we can change it. Then also speak, that we may turn aside and rescue our lives from hazard of wayside doom and chance entanglement of an alien fate. So, alien fate. She says, my daughter, otherwise I'm sure she is going to be happy. But maybe she has chosen somebody who is going to bring an adverse fate for her. So this is how we go to Pandits, and this is how the Pandits still survive and thrive in this Kali-yuga. Thanks to this Kali-yuga, that one needs nothing but a parrot and some papers. Not even that. All that one needs to do is put one handcuff print on the backside and say, I know how to see hands. And you see many things, beautiful things will happen. At least I used this trick when I got into medical college. So there used to be ragging, terrible ragging, Armed Forces Medical College, lot of ragging. So by God's grace, that time I didn't know about mother, but surely it was her grace. So just the word I had spread around that I know how to see hands. Well, I knew, but not something very good. So all the seniors will come, and while my friends will be ragged, I would be seeing their hands. And very soon I learned the trick and lost my art. I did know how to see hands. But I realized that you have to tell them beautiful things. Till one day I got caught in a very strange way. There was a person who had failed 6-7 times. And I saw his hand and said, sir, you have a wonderful fate. You are going to go to England and you will do very well in your life. He suddenly started shouting, called all the students around. Look here, what he's saying. And I got a bit nervous. Whatever he said, I said beautiful things. He said, look what he's saying. And everybody started laughing. So I didn't understand why they are laughing. So I said, no sir, this will happen in your life. He said, do you know that I have failed 6 times? So I said, doesn't matter. Destiny will find its way. The strangest thing is that comes the fantastic thing. Many years later, somebody told me about this man. You know what he's doing? I said, no, I don't know. But this what has happened. He's doing very well. I met him in a 5-star hotel. Now, this man didn't do well in his medical curriculum and all, but after somehow clearing all his exams, he joined a marketing firm. You need little bit of medicine knowledge for that. That's all. And there, because he had marketing skills which were never explored during his medical curriculum, he did very well. And I don't know whether he traveled abroad or not, but he was doing extremely extraordinarily well. So see, destiny does ultimately find you. But she is telling Narada, tell me so that we can change it. That's why we go to soothsayers, we go to palmists, we go to horoscope, Janam Patri and all that. But Narada is wise. And Narada slowly answered to the queen. He is wise. He knows that it's not so simple as that. What help is in prevision to the driven? It's one of the marvelous lines. Sri Aurobindo is not using the word prevision to the blind. Normally vision goes with blind. Prevision to the driven. And this line reminds me of actual image I saw once, that there was a man carrying a goat behind on his moped, and the goat was all tied. She was obviously being taken to the slaughterhouse, and the goat was enjoying having something in her mouth, and she was munching. And looking at her, I felt this is how human life is driven. Now, the word driven didn't come, but she's being taken to the slaughterhouse. And she must be thinking, no goat has ever sat on a moped. I have the great fortune of sitting in a moped. Like they have this advertisement where a dog is driving a car. It's figuratively correct. Though, of course, maybe we will have dog cars also. We don't know. Science is advancing. Now only we have figuratively, but one day we may have dogs driving cars. But that doesn't change the doghood. So the goat is being driven to the slaughterhouse. So she doesn't know that actually I should jump from this. I am being taken to my... So Narada is telling, what help is there in prevision to the driven? Supposing somewhere to tell the goat, you know where you are going? What will happen? She can't do anything. She was badly tied to the moped. What will happen? Whatever little joy she is having of thinking in her imaginary world that I am being worshipped and I am much above all these poor goats, that also will be snatched away. That's all that will happen. So when we are driven by ignorance, desire, ego, then prevision has no meaning. Prevision has meaning only when we can live in that state of the soul where a prayer, a master act, a king idea, then prevision has a meaning, because that can change the course of things. So Narada says, what help is in prevision to the driven? Safe doors cry opening near, the doomed pass on. Safe doors open. Many times indications come. There are suggestions, hints of the gods. Jump, jump, jump to the goat. But the goat says, no, after I finish my morsel, my Malik is so nice. He has given me so much food to eat. You are asking me to jump. Again, there is a, moped slips and the goat is separated, but it doesn't run away. It again is put back on the moped. So, doors open for us. Many times there are indications, and the mother says you must follow those indications. Even somebody asked her that if, I feel like while jumping a high jump, crossing a bar, if I feel very uneasy, what should I do? So mother says, one is fear. Of course, you should not act under fear, but sometimes a premonition. Then listen to it. There's a story about the Malaysian plane crash, where a child, very touching story, 10-year-old child, is telling the mama, I don't feel like going. And the mama is saying, you are going with your cousin brother on a holiday, you will enjoy, it will be so nice. And then again he says, whole night this child was restless. He says, Mama, what if I die? She says, why are you speaking such things? Then in the morning, she describes a touching scene that he forgot his passport and he couldn't find it. Then she found the passport and gave it to him. That, see, you are so careless, you don't keep your things properly. Then when the child is going, again and again he's turning and he comes back and hugs her. There were so many doors that destiny was opening, but she ultimately bid him bye. And only to hear later on that the child has died. So destiny is, as we said, there are many possibilities at each step. But because we are driven by the blindness of our will, by the blindness of our choice, by the blindness of desires, that we don't see these doors which are opening. So Narada, safe doors cry opening near, the doomed pass on. They don't enter into these safe doors. If future knowledge is an added pain, a torturing burden, and a fruitless light on the enormous scene that fate has built, the eternal poet, universal mind, has paged each line of his imperial act. Invisible, the giant actors tread, and man lives like some secret player's mask. We are pushed, our steps, our speech, everything is moved. Sri Aurobindo says that even these things that we speak are hidden prompters of the speech. He uses the word hidden prompters, the troglodytes of the mind, the secret actors behind the will. They push us and we end up saying something, we end up doing something, and much later we realize that if but for that, of course the grace saves us from the consequences. But then much later we realize that it was not necessary at all. And man lives like some secret player's mask. He knows not even what his lips shall speak, for a mysterious power compels his steps. And life is stronger than his trembling soul. So very often this example is given from the Mahabharata, that Draupadi laughed. She laughed when Duryodhana fell into the pool of water. Now, she is a highly cultured, refined lady. She is an empress. And yet at that point of time she laughed. And that became one door catalyst for a kind of destiny which will follow. So even the words that we are going to speak, we don't have control over it. That's why it's such a sadhana, just the tapasya of words. Because it not only spoils our vocal apparatus, it spoils us. It's like an arrow, one shot, we cannot take it back. It's unloosed. So we are pushed, hidden prompters of speech. None can refuse what the stark force demands. So this stark force, force with a capital F, so fate which extracts from us what it must. Sri Aurobindo brings this aspect. As we said, bhag also means bhag, the portion. So it comes from the yagna. So in yagna what happens that whether we like it or not, we are extracted the sacrifice. So we may think that, oh, going towards spiritual life, we have to sacrifice, we have to surrender. Normal life is very nice. So one gets married as a child. Now what happens? The child extracts the sacrifice. You have to sacrifice many things, your moments, your energy, everything. You have to surrender to the fancies of a child. The child wants to go now and buy that. And you say, no, this is not the time, I don't have the resources, and the child throws up. So ultimately, we surrender. Instead of surrendering to the Supreme, we surrender. So life will extract what it must. What is not to be enjoyed by us will be taken away. Like that man who left over 1 crore in his bank but could not enjoy a penny. So this is how life will take. So to live with this wisdom that what we need will be given to us is really so true and so wonderful. It will come. Even if we shut the doors, it will come. That's why it said that Bhagwan chappar faad ke deta hai. Chappar faad ke dene ka matlab, it doesn't mean that he will break the roof and give in plenty. What it means, if we shut the doors and windows, he will literally make a hole on the rooftop and throw it. Because it's to come. It's our portion. You can't deny it. That's why in that story of Mahadeva, Daksh says, I will not give the portion to Shiva. So he doesn't invoke Shiva. So the gods come out and say, how can we deny it? And they pass it on to Shiva. So we all have our portion of joy which is given to us. But also, there is something which we have to give, because this world is built on a plan of oneness. And fate operates on the basis of oneness. So it's not that I do this and I get this. There is a totality of creation. And our share will be taken from us. So it's much better that while we are alive, we consciously offer that share to the divine. So we keep it in safekeeping. And that divine has opened a bank, which is Jan Dhan Yojana. Original Jan Dhan Yojana. But it is Nar Narayan Yojana. It is and his name of his bank is Divine Development Bank Private Limited or Universal Limited. So everything that we have offered to him is in safekeeping. That's the only thing safe from all the vagaries of time. And when we need it, it will come back to us. And he gives a tremendous interest. Now I am talking like a marketing salesperson. And it's like, if you give it with a lot of love, he may add even 100% interest. Because everything is possible. If you give like a miser, there may be a minus interest. So he doesn't go by mental rules. That standard interest, 9%, 10%. So when we give to divine, and we give it with love, joy, and we want to give more, he says, oh, he wants to give more. Let me give him more so that he can give more. This is the story of Surendranath Johar, Taradi's father. How he started his business. So, he wanted to have his own business and he didn't know what to do. So he was, walking in the park and thinking, if I get some money to start business, I promise that I will give 10% to you. He tells God. And he goes a few steps and finds 90 rupees. So he says, you are very smart. You have kept your share already. That's a very brilliant one. He actually started like that. It's a real story. And he made so much money. I mean, amazing. And he gave also. So many things. You see, the Delhi ashram, basically it has come up from, not only here, so much work he did with that money. And the divine gave him plenty because you are doing divine work. So wonderful. So that's how Divine Development Bank works. Its logic is very different from our banks. Our banks can go bankrupt, but he can always add, his own part. So, Narada says that it will extract for a mysterious power compels his steps. None can refuse what the stark force demands. Her eyes are fixed upon her mighty aim. No cry or prayer can turn her from her path. She has leaped an arrow from the bow of God. And then he touches directly on who Savitri is. Just now gives only a brief hint. That says, in any case, what belongs to God, as they say, what is Caesar's, render unto Caesar's. Divine will take it. And then he says, Savitri, she's an arrow shot from God. You can't deviate her path. She is born for a particular work and mission, and she's going to accomplish it come what may. Even if death stands in her way, she is going to do it. So he gives that hint, and quite naturally, the queen is worried. His words were theirs who live unforced to grieve. and help by calm the swaying wheels of life, and the long restlessness of transient things, and the trouble and passion of the unquiet world. So he lets words in such a way. He lives beyond grief. So these beings, there is a description of these beings in Savitri in The Secret Knowledge. Sri Aurobindo says that these beings who dwell in the higher worlds, higher hemisphere, the gods, they don't care for they reckon not our virtue or our sin. They have no portion in the good that dies, and they have no portion in the evil that we leave behind. They just act, and they act based on identity with the divine. So they are beyond grief. They are not touched by grief because they are able to see the many things that are going to follow. So we see only one small little step, but what is going to happen next we don't see. So they are beyond grief, but we see only a small arc. If we could also have that kind of a complete knowledge, and we know that at the end we are going to be one with the divine, everything will be a joy. Like that Bhakta who is waiting under the tree and he asks his fate, only one thing he asks. And sometimes I feel we should ask all these Pandits one question, and if they can answer it correctly, then we should ask other things. And the question should be, when will I unite integrally with the divine? So if they can answer this question, then we should ask other questions. But this is the question of questions. So the Bhakta asks, Bhakta and the Tapasvi ask Lord Vishnu, when are we going to unite? So Narada comes back, he is the divine messenger, tells the Tapasvi after 3 lives, oh my God, I have to once again do so much of hard tapasya. Okay, let me enjoy this life. So he gets up and goes away. And when he tells the Bhakta, can you count the number of leaves? Plenty. I can't count. After that many lives, the Lord will come to you. He is so happy, filled with joy. Oh, that is the end. Everything is worthwhile. And the Lord manifests. So we can compress it. So this is Narada is beyond grief because he knows that this is the end. But we don't see that end. Therefore, we are always riddled with grief. So he spoke. His words were there, so live unforced to grieve. And they give calm. How do they give calm? What is the power? They know that ultimately eternal good is going to triumph. They know that ultimately God will have the last word. They know that irrespective of whatever pleasant and painful things may happen in our lives, one thing is sure, and that is the growth of the divine in our life through many countless bodies and births. And last 3 lines, as though her own bosom were pierced, the mother saw the ancient human sentence strike her child, her sweetness that deserved another fate, only a larger measure given of tears. She senses it. That he could have said everything will be wonderful. He is not saying any of these things. He is turning around. He is simply saying that don't worry, fate will take what it's meant to take. Why are you bothered? Anyway, she is born for a destiny. That destiny will fulfill itself. He is not telling that don't worry, her life will be healthy, harmonious, happy. Nothing. He is simply saying in cryptic words. So, it's like blessings. It's very cryptic. We may put our meaning into the blessing. Oh, mother has blessed me. That means now I will be full of no dearth of money, no dearth of happiness. I will always be healthy, happy. But blessings doesn't mean that. Divine has another meaning. So we should always ask when divine says something, what it means. So he will reveal a new meaning to us. So Narada reveals, and the queen who is sensitive, mothers are very sensitive to what's coming to their child. She feels that something is amiss. First my husband spoke very cryptically, and now the sage is speaking cryptically. He is hiding something. It looks like the ancient sentence is going to strike my child. And Narada cannot change it. He can only give calm. So there are 2 levels at which foresight works. Narada has the knowledge, but he doesn't have the power to change. So His role is only to give calm and peace for man to go through it. But who can change? That only the Divine Mother. That comes much later. So we stop with these lines. As though her own bosom were pierced, the mother saw the ancient human sentence strike her child. Her sweetness. So, what is the human sentence? Her sweetness that deserved another fate. Always we cry, why me, why me? I didn't deserve it. And not only me, okay, I am ready to take it. My child never deserved it. So the ancient human sentence, strike her child. Her sweetness that deserved another fate, only a larger measure given of tears. Now this is the beauty of Sri Aurobindo, that he takes up the human condition to its grim earnest. Anybody else would have said, no, you know what, good thing happens to good people in this life or another. Evil will always suffer. He doesn't say such simplistic things. He says, yes, in life it happens that people whom we think that they deserve everything beautiful, they get a greater measure of tears. What that is and why it is so, that will be revealed to us later. So we'll stop here and continue tomorrow.